Hi guys, Craig here and welcome back to the channel. Today what I thought I'd do is pull out the old SafeBatt Lite. When I say old, I did a review on this battery 6 or 8 months ago and it's been sitting around ever since. So I thought, great opportunity, let's charge it back up and do a discharge on it. You'll remember this battery just performs beautifully, 300 amp hours down to 12 volt or thereabouts. I do still have these on my online store, so if somebody wants one, I've actually reached out to the guys at SafeBatt and they've given me a very sharp price. So if you want one of these batteries, email me, just craig@offgridsolarsolutions.com.au, and I'll come back to you with a sharp price on it. And look, it's a very nice battery. Sitting around now for quite a while. I'm going to charge it up, discharge it, and let's see if it still gets its claimed 300 amp hours down to 12 volts. Stay with me. Okay, sitting at about that 92%, taking 76 amps or around that 1000 watt mark. You can see there that we're about 18 millivolt deviation in the cells, so all of that looks good. Over that 3.4 volts now per cell. So we'll let that charge up to 14.2 and then we'll let it sit. We'll make sure that the cells are nice and balanced before we start the discharge test. I've just realised this is actually not the battery that I did all the original tests on. This is one that I got a little bit later from the guys at SafeBatt because I wanted to do my own internal testing and I wanted one out of the case, so they were happy enough to supply it. But you know what I did? Stuck it underneath the counter and forgot all about it. The reason I clicked is I noticed when I was looking at this data, this battery's only done one cycle and it's never had any overcharge or over discharge alarms thrown at it. So there you go, guys. That's not the original battery. So let's see if it performs. Let's see if it produces its 300 amp hours down to 12 volts. We'll keep going. We'll give it a full capacity test and we'll see what we get out of it. Okay, so the SafeBatt Lite's just about charged now. You can see that the charge current's down to about 13 amps there in the top left-hand corner. We're at 14.14 volts. It's going to go to 14.2. What I wanted to point out is have a look at the cell balance in this battery. 13 millivolt deviation, and we're approaching that 3.55 volts per cell. So we're just about at the top there. But what that shows me is when the guys at SafeBatt have put these batteries together, they've used batteries with very similar internal resistance. And that's one of the ways to achieve a really nice balanced battery. So it's the next day now, and I didn't get time to do the discharge test. I had to go out, and I really wanted to hang around for this. So I've left it, come back to it today. It's been fully charged up now, balanced nicely. A couple of things what I've done is I've removed the Anderson plugs that I had here. So remember, you'll probably see it in the previous shots, I had an Anderson plug sitting down here, which is 175 amp Anderson. And the load that I'm going to be putting on over there on that 30 amp to 51.2 nominal volt charger is about 175 amp. So I figured it was just a little bit too much load to put on it continuously for the amount of time that it's going to take to discharge this 300 amp hour battery. The other thing that I've done is I've gone into the BMS settings and I've changed them. So if you look back at my original video, you'll notice that the SafeBatt guys put the under voltage at 2.9 volts per cell. I've dropped it down to 2.5 volts per cell, and I've dropped the battery under voltage to 10 volts. Now the reason I've done that is that's how most other manufacturers set their BMS to achieve their desired parameters. And remember, this battery achieved over 300 amp hours down to 12 volts previously, and then cut out, didn't get too much more than that. So I thought I'd bring it all the way down to 2.5 and 10 volts and basically wring its neck to see what we can get out of it. So the other thing I'm also going to do is I'm going to keep the load on very high throughout most of the test, and then probably for the last 5 minutes or so, when it gets down to say 5% capacity, I'm going to disconnect that battery charger and put a smaller load on it. And that'll allow me to just pull a little bit more out of it. It doesn't make a lot of difference with lithium, but it's going to make a little bit of difference. And I really want to see what I can get out of this battery. So I'll start the discharge test now. I'll let it settle in, and then I'll show you what sort of current that I'm pulling out of it. The load's now settled in, 164 amps 169 on the BMS, 12.58 volts compared to 12.96, both showing 91%, as you can see there. Voltage on the multimeter, 12.91. I've just got it clicked directly onto the terminals. We'll follow this throughout the next hour and a half or so, and we'll see what we can get out of this battery. Quick thermal test on the terminals, 40 degrees, 42, 39. Look, none of that worries me. That's all perfectly normal. BMS, 24. It's not even warming up. When I reached out to the guys at SafeBatt to get the password for the BMS, I got a little text message, a little cheeky one, and there it is there. And you'll see that's the new SafeBatt Pro. Again, 300 amp hour nominal, 12.8 LFP battery. It's got a few special things about it. I believe it's got fire suppression built into this battery. It also has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, I think I was told. Active balancing. Great news is it's going to be a 1C battery, so that's 300 amps in, 300 amps out. And if you'll notice, there's something real cheeky here, CAN bus. So that's exciting, guys. I can't wait to see that battery. I've been promised that by the boys at SafeBatt that they'd send me one for testing and review. So really excited about that. From all accounts, it's going to be a really nice battery. The other thing I've been told is they've removed the battery terminals here and they've gone to flexible bus bars throughout the whole battery, and that's helped them get to that 1C rating, I believe. They didn't say specifically, but I reckon that's how they've been able to achieve it. Trying to fit all of these cables into a very compact footprint was proving difficult for them on this battery. So I think that's how they've got around it. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. Down to 84%, hour and 29 to go. No issues so far. Discharge test continuing down to 57% now. No real problems. But while that's going on, I thought I'd just give you a little bit of an insight to the capacity of this battery. Now, it's always been rated as nominal capacity 300 amp hours, but if you can clearly see here, we're showing 314 amp hours. Now, the reason they've done that, using 314 amp hour cells and cutting the voltage off at 2.9 volts per cell or 11.6 volts overall, will give a long life of this battery, potentially, by leaving that little bit in the tank. It was never a secret, guys. It was always written right there on the label, 314 versus 300. A little bit of an insight there, a little bit of the secret sauce. What do you think? While we're waiting for this discharge to end, I just thought I'd show, a few might find this interesting, that so I can see this on the VRM portal. So you can see we're 35% state of charge. We've pulled 192 amp hours and 36 minutes to go. And we've got battery voltage and amps and stuff at the top as well. So that's quite handy. So you can see that here, just on the VRM portal, and it comes up quite well. So the other thing is, so this is my off-grid system that runs my property here. So you can see we're charging at 83%. But when you look here, we've got the PV inverter, which is my Fronius AC coupled inverter, and then we've got some DC coupled solar down here. If we go into the remote console here, you can also see the AC charger, which is the discharge on the test rig going into my household battery system, which is quite handy. So the advantage is that it comes up as a charger simply because I put it on as I put it via a shunt, and I've set it up as a battery monitor. So you can look at that as well and go into the device list, and there it is at the top there. So you can see we're putting in 29.5 amps. Oops, sorry about that. You can see we're putting in 29.5 amps, and it's a 30 amp battery charger, so it's quite handy. I like the idea of shifting sand so that I'm not wasting energy. There is a few losses there, but generally speaking, it's quite good. Got Clifford with me again today. He's always hanging out with me. He's my mate. So we're down to 9% now on the shunt, and we've consumed 266.6 amp hours, 12% remaining on the BMS data. So what I might do now is drop the load and maybe halve it. We'll see what it is. I'll just put this fan heater on and see what we get, just so I can just try and wring that a little bit more out of it and keep it alive a little bit longer. Like I said, it's not going to make much difference, but it might just get me that little bit more. In real world, guys, bear with me while I swap this. Okay, so now I've just plugged in the fan heater. Real world is you're not going to pull 170 amps continuous out of your battery. You're just not going to do it. So there we go. Look, fan heater's now coming up, and it's about 75, 76 amps. So that'll just settle in. How many watts is it? 800-ish. So we'll let that run to the end, and I'll come back right at the end and we'll catch it. Clifford, don't you move. Just about to crack the 300 amp hours now. And at what voltage? That's the important thing that I want to just record here. 300 at 12.52 or 12.58. Sorry, 12.57 on the BMS. So we'll go with the BMS number, 12.57 volts. So let's make a note of that. 12.57, which is the nominal amp hours that SafeBatt rate this battery to. Now it's obviously going to keep going, and it's performing really well. So I'll come back again now when the battery gets to 12 volt. I'll record the amp hours there, and I'll also record the amp hours at BMS cutoff, which remember is 2.5 volts thereabouts, or 10 volts overall pack. Once that hits 12 volt exactly on the BMS, and there we go, 12 volts, 311.9. 311.9. So I'm going to stay with it till the end. I may cut the video in places just so you guys don't get bored when I put it together. Now in my mind, the multiplus is going to cut out before the BMS. That's normally what happens. This battery, it is a premium battery. We do know that the cells are rated at 314 amp hours. I've dropped the discharge current slightly to try and wring that last little bit out of it. Otherwise it happens so quickly I usually miss it. So yes, this is a quality battery. Yes, it should achieve 314 amp hours, but it's obviously a pass from me. I mean, I really just like this battery. It's put together really well. Yes, it costs a bit of money, but you know what you're getting. So I'm going to stay with it. Hope you can see all of that. 313.2 amp hours now. Now this is somewhere about, we're getting close. When you're looking at the cells, 2.98, there's the lowest cell. Cell voltage, cell number 4. Cell number 4, 2.935. Remember, SafeBatt set it at 2.90, and I've dropped it to 2.5 to give a comparison of competitors' batteries. So this is there or thereabouts where the battery would cut out if all the parameters were set the way they left the factory at SafeBatt, and it's made 314.2 amp hours. So this thing does nameplate without an issue. I'll stay with it. Lithium ferrophosphate, or LFP, or Lite 4, it's a really flat charge and discharge curve, but right at the end it just will fall off the cliff very quickly. 2.9, I'm just looking at that lower cell voltage there for you guys, 2.905. So we've still got a little way to go. 315 amp hours, excuse me. And then we've just done the 2.9. So that's where it would have cut out previously. And it should drop off fairly quickly now. But I like the idea of leaving that little bit in the tank. I think it's a great idea. Still going. I mean, as you can see, we're pulling, 778 watts now out of this battery. That's a more realistic load that you're going to be running. Sure, you'll run high loads, but only for short periods of time. You put the kettle on 2,000 watts, put the toaster on 2,200, 2,300, whatever. This battery will handle that. So that cell 4 is going to be our problem child. Yep. And I say that jokingly, but that's the one that's probably going to cut out first. 316 now. Still going strong. I really like the way they've done the girdle on this battery. And instead of having the BMS over the top of the cells where that generates more heat up here, by putting it on the side and you've got a little bit of space inside the battery case, which you've seen on my previous video, it stops the BMS from getting hot. I mean, have a look at this thing, it doesn't even warm up. 22 degrees, and the cells, 36 degrees at the terminal, 30, yeah, it's a little bit warmer there, 37, 38, like it's all well within nice limits. Better keep an eye on this or I'm going to miss it. Cell voltages now, 2.7. I'll tell you what, wouldn't it be nice if this thing cracks 320 amp hours? There we go. Low voltage has just come up on the inverter, so the inverter is going to cut before the BMS. Nothing I can do about that. I've set that inverter as low as it'll go for the voltage cutout. Hold in there for me until I get 320, that'd be nice. 2.67 now on cell number 4. 320 amp hours. Just wait for that inverter to cut out. And we'll get our final number. $321. Oh, that cell might grab it. There we go. 321.1. And I think we actually got to the 2.5. 321.1. Better write that up before I forget. 321.1. Yeah, so you can see that they're really nice cells, eh? 321 amp hours from 314 amp hour cells. And I did hit it pretty hard for, 90% of the discharge rate. I was up towards that 170 amps on this battery. which I consider quite a high load and not really real world. Just turn that inverter off. So there you go, guys. I'm going to end that one there. I really hope you liked that one. Had that battery sitting under the bench there for, you know, quite a few months. Charged it up, and look what it did. Hey, you'd have that in your van. Oh, by the way, this meets IEC 62619, which is what's required now under the new AS 3001-2022. So look out for that certification. Thanks, guys, and stay tuned for the next one.